Ooh, Zoom's new bar about recording looks different. Okay. Here we go. So welcome. We're so glad to see you today. Happy Pi Day. Glad to have you with us to celebrate this excitingness of the crazy day that we can say has no end at all. Amity, thanks. This is our agenda for today. This month is one of our COPs where we get to come together and really think about those topics that are important to all of you. So you can see that we're going to be starting with all of you getting to choose what topics you want us to focus on, what you're concerned about, what maybe has been going on that you really want to share your collective brilliance around. So we have our breakout topics. What is this called? It's not a quiz. I'm trying to say it's a quiz, but it's not. Our breakout topics survey so that you can go ahead and choose which topic you think you're interested in. There's also a space for you to write in a topic today. So if the ones on the list are not floating your boat or something else has been coming up in your COE and that you want to discuss, feel free to write a topic in there for us to work through. Think about what you need support on in your county, what's been coming up in your county, what may be coming up soon. And that's what we'll be using to organize the breakout rooms that we're going to have this first beginning half of our time together so that we can talk, share, and help one another move forward with our work. So I'll be quiet and give you guys a minute or two to do that. All right, it looks like those responses are slowing down. So I am also super excited. I don't know about you, about where we are in the year and all of the things that are happening, but we want to remind you that in the next few weeks, we have the spring equinox, we have a lunar eclipse happening that we should be able to see fairly well here in California, and there's that really intense solar eclipse that's happening April 8th. If any of you are taking the time to spend a bit of time in the middle of the country and see what that total eclipse looks like. But our California nations and other nations have a lot of traditions related to these changes in seasons and eclipses. And I know that I love hearing the storytelling that happens in our area about these natural events and what our tribes think about when it comes to how to explain the natural events of seasonal changes and eclipses. I spent some time in the last few weeks deep diving into some of these stories, and I was really interested to learn about the indigenous story from the Hoopa up in the Humboldt area that shares the idea that the moon has 20 wives and all of these pets that they've collected to take care of over years and years and millennia, and that the moon at some point doesn't bring enough food to all of their pets, and so the pets start to eat away at the moon, and then the wives of the moon have to save him, restore him to health, and collect his blood, and that is what we see happening during the solar eclipse or the lunar eclipse. Sorry. And then here in San Diego, our Kumeyaay have a lot of traditional dances and songs related to lunar eclipses, and they call the lunar eclipse the Hilya Waso, which translates to nibbling the moon. So correlates really nicely with what the Hoopa think about what's happening with the moon, and thinking about the idea that we can sing songs and chant to bring the moon back to full health. So take a minute and maybe think about, do you know your local nation's eclipse stories? Are there things that come up in your area related to eclipse? We would love to hear about those if you have anything that you want to put in the chat. We also would love to hear where you are zooming in from and who your local indigenous tribe or nation is.
of the tone of play.
This is me now, right? All right. So, hi, everybody. I'm Jen Much. I'm science coordinator at Santa Clara County Office of Education. I always forget to introduce myself. And just kind of wanting to review our objectives every time we meet. This is actually our 7th meeting this year. Pretty exciting. We're getting through this year and have great participation from you all. And our objectives are just, here listed on the slide, and I'll read through them a bit. It's just sharing our resources and our practices. We want to build the capacity of our county offices of education to serve as the backbone support for these following outcomes: supporting access to regular and ongoing environmental and outdoor learning experiences for students. Hopefully you're all working with school districts and teachers and community-based partners to do that work, and centering on supporting those from most more marginalized and vulnerable communities. We want to make sure we're supporting development of district-wide plans and include experiences for students at all grade levels with an emphasis on low-income students and students of color, and applying frameworks that integrate environmental literacy and sustainability into the curriculum, campus, community, and culture, and infusing sustainability principles and practices into the County Office of Education core operations. And obviously, we've always had this ambitious goal of having all 58 county offices represented somehow, and I think we're getting there. I don't know how many we're at yet, but we have new people every year, and we're excited that you're all able to join us. So next slide, please. Oop, there we go. Thank you. As Crystal mentioned, today is Pi Day, and we want to give you a little bit of background on it. And also, if you, after you've shared what lands you're on, but maybe think about, I know this kind of early in the morning to think about pie, but in the chat, if you could share what your favorite type of pie is, that's amazing. Oh, and I just saw 40 of 58. Woohoo! We're doing great. Of county offices. But thinking about Pi Day, a little bit more background about it. It was actually founded by the Exploratorium in 1988. So they're the ones who started Pi Day, and it's based on the numbers in the date, which is 314, that match the first 3 digits of the mathematical constant pi. And pi has to do, if you were ever a math teacher, I got to teach math for a little while, it has to do with the circumference of a circle and its diameter, and thinking about pi in the circular sense. And those formulas, you always use pi when you're kind of deciding on the circumference and radius of a circle. And it's also represented by the Greek letter pi, as you see on this particular one. And the pi's digits is infinite, right? It goes on and on and on. That's what we were saying, that Crystal was mentioning, in this day goes on and on. But mathematicians have been using that and calculating it for about 4,000 years. And there's people that know the digits of pi. I don't know how many, I don't even know very many anymore, but it's pretty fascinating constant in mathematics. And I actually want to share that another story, as I got to be at the Exploratorium on Pi Day one year, and that was really fun to celebrate. And we did a pi parade, so each person had a digit of pi, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So happy Pi Day, everyone. And just in the chat, share your favorite flavor of pie or what type of pie you like. Ooh, here we go, some good ones. Meringue. I like Dutch apple. That's one of my favorites. So, ooh, strawberry rhubarb. Yum. Okay, I'm getting hungry. All right. Well, thanks everybody for sharing that. And we are actually I'm gonna pass it to Julie. She's gonna explain our next steps in the breakout rooms.
All right, good morning, everybody. Julie Hilborn, Environmental Literacy and Sustainability Coordinator, San Mateo County Office of Education. Great to see everybody. So this is the part of our COP where we look at the topics that we all chose, and we can each go into a room that is, most beneficial for us, whatever it is that you want to talk about. And here is how the topics played out today. So it looks like we've got Our two biggest percentages are expanded learning and organizing a community-based partner network. And then, interesting, this is so interesting. Look how all the other ones are exactly 9.1%. Maybe that's because we had one person in each one. We don't have a giant group of people here today. So, and then this breakout note taker up here is where you can just choose somebody, if you would, to take notes, or everybody can get in there and be taking notes during the breakout so that we can capture all of the great conversations that you have. So I think that, and thank you, Crystal, for putting that in the chat. And so the breakout rooms right now are set. And so feel free to just go ahead and join in there. And I'm going to look at our timing and see how long we're going to be in there. It looks like this little section, gosh, we're a little early right now, so that's great. So we'll probably have a good 20 minutes at least in those breakout rooms. So what questions do you have, if any?
And you can also move between breakout rooms if you have a conversation for a while with someone and you're both decide, oh, let's go to a new room. That's fine.
Okay. We don't have a giant group of people here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 breakout rooms and probably less than 14 people here. So we'll just kind of see how it works out. If you find yourself by yourself, yeah, like Amby said, you can just jump around.
Yeah, you should be able to see if there are people in the room already. So maybe go for a second choice if there's no one in your first choice.
So feel free to hop on in there right now. Gosh, I only waited one room.
Sorry.
But the one room I was in was a really rich conversation. So I hope that everybody enjoyed that and you got what you needed. And speaking of that, feel free to share out about the gots and needs. So what are some things that you learned? Let's first of all just talk about let's just share out the great tidbits of knowledge that we all were sharing while we were in the breakout rooms, and then we'll do needs after that. So let's start with GOTS. Would any breakout room like to share out?
Yeah, I'll share out. I am a pretty brand new at up in Humboldt County, coordinating our environmental education community of practice. And I do not have much funding for my position, so they really just gave me a few contract hours to do it. So, so yeah, I got a lot of really great feedback about how to do the most with my hours and sort of how to which direction I should go to try to get a little more funding for our network. So it was awesome. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And is it Tara or Tara?
It's Tara.
Tara. Okay. I may have to ask you again. All right. Thanks, Tara. Okay. Anyone else would like to share out about their space that they were in?
I'll go for our expanded learning room. It was a very rich conversation. I think we hated leaving each other for that moment, but I was with Summer and Susan, and we started talking about expanded learning through a grant that Summer had shared with us, and it was all on expanded learning. And being expanded learning people, Susan and I, we didn't know about it, and it dealt with bringing environmental literacy. So I think that gave us some insight that there are people that are appreciating our space that's not necessarily always recognized, and providing funding for the important work that we can do with environmental literacy. And then in Solano County, where Summer's at, she was talking about building her community resources as part of a multi-year plan in getting out to her community and bringing educational programs to the schools. And then we got into a conversation about the Green Site Award for expanded learning programs that we're developing here in my county. And so we had conversation about, coming together at one point and bridging that school day after school work, and then sharing it, of course, with Susan in Orange County. Since Susan and I were both in the system of support for expanded learning, bridging from mid-cal to SoCal, is really our ultimate goal, so that all kids have high quality STEAM and after school. And then Susan really brought up a great topic, simple as it may be, squirrels. And having a low floor, high ceiling kind of activity, such as going out to look at squirrels and bringing ecosystem and citizen science work into her learning programs.
Wonderful. So is squirrels an acronym, or is that just going out and looking, what is that?
Oh no,
Just
it's
going
real.
out and looking at squirrels.
Looking at real
So-
squirrels.
I did a community of practice meeting for my different sites that was optional. They could come if they wanted to. And we talked about inquiry and observation outdoors. And then I had some money to spend, so I put together citizen science kits with like a digital camera and some field guides for bugs and birds, and some resources and connections to some citizen science programs that are local in the area, whether it's counting butterflies or whatever. And there happens to be one at through the LA County Natural History Museum that's squirrel tracking. So we just got a little on the topic of squirrels and how cute they are. And how they're everywhere, but like that's a way for kids to participate in science and still have fun with it. So,
Awesome. I
so
just
actual
wanna,
squirrels.
yeah, this is super wonderful to hear. And I just want to let you folks know that Olivia Kiernan up in Humboldt in the after school, the expanded learning system of support, and Jeff Davis from the California After School Network and I met to talk about starting a working group for expanded learning and environmental literacy. Everybody's very excited, and we've noticed how much energy there is around this, and there's so many great things that are already happening. So just stay tuned for more invitations to figure out what that might look like and how it would be most useful to you all. So exciting.
And Monica, what's the name of the grant that you were talking about?
Summer, correct me if I'm wrong. It was the E-Blue 21st Century Watershed grant.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, are there any other groups that would like to share out? I guess I can, oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Oh yeah,
Amy.
just real quick. I don't know if Jerry Song from LAUSD is gonna like share anything or not, but we had tons of great things. But the thing that was super exciting is that there is a Minecraft competition where the company made a version of LA, and the competition is actually to recreate Los Angeles to deal with climate change within all the different like things that you can build in the world in the program. And it's happening right now. How cool is that?
Super cool.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Amy. Yeah, so again, it's again LAUSD, the ITI group within the Division of Instructional Technology Initiative. They developed, they worked in partnership with Microsoft to design again a Minecraft world of Los Angeles, and it's called Level Up LA. And they're utilizing it with climate literacy this year because the UN goal that they're focusing on is UN Goal 13. But again, they're using it for other UN goals as well. And it's available for anybody. So anybody who has access to Minecraft will be able to kind of download that world and to be able to, to utilize it. So if teachers at other school sites, in other districts want to use it, they absolutely can.
Wow.
That is super fun, super engaging. I can just talk to the group that I was in. It was just myself and Susan Ryan, and Susan is coming to this group for the first time. Susan is our new college and career technical education coordinator at the San Mateo County Office of Education. So I was super happy to see that she was here, and she had a very specific ask because we have a funder in our county, Peninsula Clean Energy. It's our community choice aggregator, which a lot of counties have, not all, but a lot. And she is hoping to get some funding from them to build out more training in our county for EV automotive at in the automotive programs in the high schools. And it turns out, unbeknownst to me, I did not know this, there's very little training going on in the high schools for EV vehicles. So the high school CTE programs, they're still focusing entirely on combustion engines. So these students are going through and they're learning how to fix combustion engines, but then they get out and they do not know how to fix electric vehicles. So this was fascinating to me about how, you know, we have all of this push for infrastructure and push for electric charging and fleets and all of that, but we're going to need people who can fix those things when they break. And so Susan is working on getting some funding to support that kind of training in schools. So that was exciting to hear about for me, somebody in my own county office. Okay, any other share outs that we want to share out?
That was all the groups.
Okay, great. All right, well then, when we come back, we have such a rich discussion when we come back. We have about 5 different topics, everything ranging from AB 285, which is the legislation about teaching climate change and science, to Green Ribbon, to our Seal of Civic Engagement and our Cali Call to Action, Golden State Pathways opportunities. So there's so much coming in the second hour that is very exciting. And so we're going to do a brief introduction of each of those topics, and then we will break out into breakout rooms again by topic. So once again, after you hear about each topic, you can decide what's going to be most relevant for you and go to that particular breakout room to talk more about it. And if you are interested in having a custom breakout room, that's fine too. You can definitely do that. So don't go away. I mean, actually, you can go away for a little while. We're going to take a break right now. And then we will come back at 10 after 10 to have that discussion. So we'll see you soon.
Let's skip. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for staying on for our deeper dive second hour of the Environmental Literacy Community of Practice for County Offices of Education. Our topic today is a guide to district conversations. So our County Office of Ed Innovation Hub, as we talked about at the start, our goal is to support county offices of education to support districts in this work. And we create tools and programs and processes to try to help that and systematize it. And so we've created tools over the years that this project has been happening and this group has been working together. And the latest tool we're wanting to create is a guide to district conversations, or conversation starters, to help county offices when they are supporting districts to easily connect the dots and help districts really think about the best way for them to connect environmental literacy to their work, to have it really be customized and responsive to their goals. So before getting into that, we wanted to just talk about, like, what is a tool in our Cali world of the COE Innovation Hub. So we can all have a shared understanding of what that means when we say we're developing a tool. And so we're just going to do like a very quick high-level overview of some of the tools that have been developed over the past few years with this type of goal. And that way you'll get a reminder of not only how they might be structured or see the ways and that they could be put together, but also you might not know about some of these tools. So after this, when we do breakout rooms, you can feel free to choose to dive into one of the tools or really think about holistically what would a good conversation starter tool look like. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Jen to share about the green ribbon tool.
Sure, thanks, Amity. So one of the areas that we realized that we've talked to you all about already in our first meeting. So if you do want to go back to that first meeting and watch the full recording of about an hour about talking about the green ribbon, but the green ribbon is what we have going on for this is a statewide working group that is developing the green ribbon as taking it to scale. So we really would like to see more districts and schools applying for the green ribbon awards and considering, using that as a tool. So if you're not familiar with the Green Ribbon Awards, it is a national award, but California Department of Education has a statewide ribbon award that can get you different levels of awards, whether it's gold, silver, or bronze. There's 3 different pillars of the Green Ribbon Award, and those focus on, one pillar focuses on facilities and your sites, another focuses on curriculum and environmental education, and another is about health and wellness of students and staff in your districts or on your campuses. County offices can also apply. We have a few county offices here with us that have won the Green Ribbon Award. So really want to refresh your memory about these tools that are available. And just as a quick side note, that is an entry point that I've used for a couple of our districts in helping them just kind of working on their sustainability plans and their environmental literacy plans. There's some great questions to ask in the application, and the applications usually open up in the late summer and are due in October. But we do have these links that were shared in the chat, and we'll share with you later, that are also on the slides. There's great tools here. There's application samples. There's a timeline even. So if you haven't started thinking about green ribbon in your district or your county, this is the time to start thinking about the application, because it does take a team to apply and get that going. So it's a good entry point if you haven't thought about that with working with districts. And I'll pass it back to Amity, I think. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jen. So the next tool we wanted to highlight is I think this is technically the first tool we created back in 2020, our call to action for county, district, and educational leaders. So it really is a high-level overview of how the guiding structures in California's education landscape, our LCAPs, MTSS, can be paired with environmental literacy in a way that environmental literacy is supporting the school's plans around the categories in those structures, the conditions of learning, engagement, and pupil performance outcomes. I'm just going to pop out of this view to make it easier to share across. But you'll see in this document that there's a matrix, the background, just a very high level background on environmental literacy, but then the sections are organized around these frameworks and then around the LCAP priorities in this document for conditions of learning, for MTSS, engagement, and culturally responsive teaching, and then pupil performance outcomes. And so there's the MTSS portions and the LCAP portions throughout. And there's tons of linked resources in that document that can help build a case for why environmental literacy can strengthen existing plans of districts. I've definitely used that document as a way to build some common understanding among my district leaders by sharing the high-level introduction part of the document and then having district teams do jigsaw reading of the different parts and discussing them and having partners in the room who can talk about the resources they can bring to those areas. So that's one way that that can be used. And in the chat, you can see there's also a webinar on this one and a resource document that makes it easy to find those resources. But the document itself is also extremely hyperlinked. So the next one is the Seal of Civic Engagement, the State Seal of Civic Engagement Environmental Literacy Implementation Guide is its full name. And again, this one I was so happy to have when some of my districts decided to think about adopting the seal for their students, and brought this to the meeting. I watched the webinar on it and felt very confident going in and presenting it with using the student snapshots section, but thinking about in the district I was talking to, I knew of some examples that were parallel or could, you know, could replace some of these ideas with their own examples of ways for students to work toward the seal. And then the rest of the document has sections on each of the 5 criteria: academics, civics, civic engagement, self-reflection, and character, with a lot of great resources built in. And so that section, the district team working on the design of their seal did a jigsaw reading, and they just got a ton out of it. They were like, we wish we'd had this document when we started. They were already into the process for a while when I met with them. So that's an example. And then the teacher call to action is, oh, and I don't know, people have been putting things in the chat. That's great.
Yeah, we got you covered.
Awesome. So the teacher call to action is a 3-part publication that I have used extensively with my districts. It has a section on the imperative for environmental literacy and also just what is environmental literacy, but the imperative, like why is this work absolutely essential, and then showcases voices from the field and includes a roadmap to get there. And so I'm just going to click over so you can see this. It's a much longer document than some of the others. And let me expand here a little so people can see. And so this section on the terms and definitions, you can use that in activity to really have people explore what that term environmental literacy means to them and build some common language and understanding before you get going in the work of the variety of approaches and ways that that can be interpreted, which is very helpful, and sort of the intersection of areas that might not always be being talked about, like climate literacy and solutionary teaching and learning and just outdoor learning in general. And so that can be used as a grounding section. And then this whole section on why this work is needed includes just about every reason you can imagine. And again, this is a great one for people to explore and then reflect on. So it includes all the imperatives, the mandates in the curriculum that exist for people who want that kind of like justification for it, legislation that's been passed. And it includes the connections to MTSS, college and career, being prepared for the future in a more disrupted, unpredictable world, and then all the research on the benefits that come from it. And so having people take a look through that section and then decide what speaks to them is very helpful. So there's another section that has real world examples of the work. That's sort of the first thing that everyone asks for is, how do you do this? What does it look like? Show me an example. And so there are real world examples, and then you can start collecting your own local ones, like I was mentioning with the Civic Seal, that make it even more easier for people to visualize how to get there. And then there's the implementation continuum, which has been so useful in work with, so these are stories from the field, case studies, and the implementation continuum, where you can really give people an idea of how they can plug into this work from the more supplemental, more low-hanging fruit end of the spectrum, which we call mild to spicy and transformative, where it's full-on project-based learning and students taking action. Like we just had a teacher last night and whose project to integrate environmental literacy into her science course in middle school, connected to her curriculum, ended up with students, instead of using the example in the curriculum of a construction project where they learn about what an environmental impact report is and the different types of scientists involved in creating that type of report, they looked at the construction project happening on their own campus, and each took that role in the curriculum, in her curriculum, to study the campus from that role. And then they presented to their board last night, and their superintendent is going to look into some of the solutions they mentioned for reducing pollution entering the streams and reducing erosion and increasing green space on campus. So there's that. And then there are some roadmap steps. So that is the teacher call to action. And I'm going to hand it on over for Golden State Pathways.
So this isn't a tool as much as just something that you should be aware of as you're working with districts, and LEAs are in the application process for this right now. They're actually due next week. But if you have a district in your area that is looking at Golden State Pathways, there are, as you can see on the screen, 4 pathways that they might be developing, but the STEM pathway connected to climate resilience is a new pathway that's been added with this work and this grant. And the idea of this pathway is super exciting because, unlike some other grants that feel very CTE focused, it doesn't necessarily have to have CTE courses. It just needs that climate resilient flavor across a pathway of learning in high school. So where climate is integrated into the ELA classes and into the mathematics classes and into the science classes, and how that looks to really help develop students to understand careers that are connected to climate resilient STEM. So this is really exciting that this has been added in, and it's a great place for our community-based partners and to be connecting to, because part of the way that this grant is set up is that schools are expected to collaborate with community-based partners to help students better understand the careers that are possible within these fields. So I just wanted this to be something within this idea of how we talk to districts that's available to you to be thinking about. Julie put the link from the CDE grant information in the chat so that you can take a look at that later. And I think we're going back to Amity.
Yeah, and so we have some new tools in development, and there's room for input on them from you. So during breakout rooms, we'll have a Jamboard for that. But first, we'll give you a little bit of information on the first tool Julie's going to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Amity. So you may have heard that there is new legislation called AB 285, which is specific to teaching climate change in science classes. It's actually a legislation that was modified to include new language. And so I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes about what is the legislation and what the mandate is, and then recommended next steps for districts, because, you know, we love it when mandates are made and then it's like, okay, now what are we going to do about it? And we want to be able to help schools, teachers, districts be able to manage this? So here we go. Next slide. So AB 285 mandates that climate change needs to be taught in science. And so if districts are doing NGSS science, then it's likely that they are meeting the mandate. And so, you know, I know here in our county, we have still a few districts that have not adopted new science curriculum. So they would automatically probably not be meeting the mandate, but districts that have would be having an easier time meeting it. The scope is 1st to 12th grade, and it needs to go into effect next year. So it's a pretty quick turnaround, and it is going to be assessed on the California Science Test, and it'll also be in the science framework. And so this is a great opportunity for interdisciplinary, approaches. And you can see there's a full text of legislation there, but we're just gonna talk briefly so that you'll have a good idea about what it's about here. So I also have to thank Amity and Tamara for making these slides because these are awesome. So basically in the primary and elementary grades, there isn't explicit climate change content because we want to make sure that, you know, climate change is very anxiety inducing for students, that topic. And so in the primary and elementary grades, it's really focused on the foundational content. So it's how does sunlight work and weather, and, you know, there are some things about how people are changing the environment and some solutions, but it's mostly focusing more on, you know, what is the geosphere and what is the biosphere and climate versus weather and what are those? So that way kids, by the time they're really learning the nitty-gritty of the, you know, the causes, the effects of climate change, they have a good foundational basis of the science behind it. And then by middle school and high school, that's where the teaching is really explicit. And there are some, you know, if you're interested in more of the nitty-gritty of where are the climate change concepts, they are in a link there in the NGSS standards. Next slide. And so the recommendations for districts are first to review what they're doing at science at each grade band, provide some professional learning. Now the professional learning for both teachers and students, climate change, that topic is trauma inducing, anxiety producing. It can make people just feel like the world is ending and we don't want that, right? We want people to be informed, but we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to share their feelings about it and also focus on some solutions. And then supplementing the curriculum as needed and reviewing the scope and sequence to adjust. And so this is just kind of a quick, you know, way of thinking about how can we recommend that our districts be focusing on this. And then during the professional learning, we want to make sure that we're putting clear limits on content that is grade appropriate, you know, because if you're a second grade teacher and trying to teach, you know, the causes and effects of climate change and getting really into the nitty gritty, it's clearly not an appropriate grade level for that. And so just making sure that the science standards are being taught appropriately at each grade level with the new curricula, you know, in an ideal world is going to meet the mandate. NGSS, this is, so the science content does need to be NGSS aligned in order to meet it. And then again, I want to just mention again, the trauma-informed experiences, both for adults and for students. So during the professional learning, allowing adults to be able to share their feelings, have an experience, do some art, go walk outside, sit outside, breathe in and out, you know, as they're learning about the causes and effects of climate change is a really important thing to do so that people can feel empowered to do something about it. And so including those trauma-informed tools. So we are creating tools to be able to do this with districts. And these are some of the key practices. You know, one is making sure that students have predictable routines and strong relationships to be able to share their feelings with their teachers and with other students that they're working with. you know, giving them some agency to find some solutions, because we do actually have virtually all of the solutions to climate change. It's just a matter of putting them into practice. And then, you know, the ability to self-regulate and exploring community identities. Those are also key practices that we're hoping to include more tools for in our tool. And so when you're considering supplementation, you know, thinking about what's already being taught, and is science being taught with fidelity at each grade level? Thinking about your local phenomena, like here in San Mateo County, we are the most susceptible to sea level rise of all the other counties in California. So that's a big local phenomena for us. Community-based partners can be really helpful for this because they have curricula that they're already teaching in a hands-on way, often with students. So, you know, going on field trips or having speakers come in. And then just thinking of the site as a learning laboratory, you know, we've all experienced wildfire smoke and the high heat days, and some districts are experiencing those things in greater capacity than others. And so, you know, using the site as a learning laboratory for both climate change effects and especially climate change solutions. So if there is a district that is putting in new, you know, energy efficient light bulbs, you know, helping students see that that is a solution that, you know, is already being focused on. So most districts are doing things to alleviate some of those effects. And so helping students see that those effects are, I'm sorry, that those solutions are in progress. And then just with the scope and sequence, having an ongoing check-in and thinking about the timing and what needs are arising as people are, you know, engaging with this new way of teaching. So, and then considerations for your team are just, you know, thinking about the curriculum, the campus, community, and the culture. So these really are the 4 pillars of environmental literacy and sustainability at any school or in any district, is these 4 C's: curriculum, campus, community, and culture. So thinking about the current curriculum and NGSS and how it's being implemented, and then looking at the campus as a learning laboratory, and then thinking about those community-based organizations to be able to partner with and enhance the culture of supporting climate science. Excuse me. And there's, even though we're making a new tool for this, that there's a lot of existing resources already. And the first thing is, you know, think about, okay, we've adopted our NGSS science curriculum, so let's just make sure that, you know, those topics are being taught with fidelity at each grade level. And our tool is going to have a lot of links to resources for professional learning curriculum. Your county office of education, definitely reach out to them for support. And Cali as well, if you are not getting anywhere with your county office of education, you probably will, but Cali's always there. And then free open source curriculum is coming in 2025-26. So Cali, 10 strands, and the San Mateo County Office of Education, along with 13 different organizations, are creating a new climate change and environmental justice curriculum. And that is a $6 million project that's statewide, focusing on state local phenomena around the state. And so that's coming in 25-26. And I think that is it for me. And I'm just going to turn it right back over to Amity for this new tool.
Thank you, Julie. That was quite a deep dive into all the elements of the tool that we're developing. We showed it to you in pieces on slides because, and I'm just going to put this out there because this is what it looks like right now. So what we're doing is asking you for feedback on development of tools that will help you. So right now, what you just heard about is this Google Doc that we're just about ready to put the final polishing touches on, but you'll see what Julie talked through, that there's going to be this section on what it means in the grade bands with the links to the details and the flow chart of steps to take, and then the discussion questions for teams as they're exploring. And so we're looking at this being a very short, like 2-page document. And the other tool that we're working toward, which is not even that far along as the one I just showed you in a Google Doc, is this tool for starting district conversations or bringing the conversation to environmental literacy when you're working with districts. And what we want this to be is simple guidance for COE staff, and districts might use this themselves directly as well. That happens with some of these tools. But to engage districts in exploring connections between environmental literacy and their existing goals. And some of the categories we're thinking about are including like typical entry points, like these ones we just covered with our tools, common settings and opportunities where these conversations happen, like certain networks that are run by COEs, or the cadence of events and planning that districts do. And then some differentiation for conversations with site leaders versus district leaders. And so we're still really interested in feedback on the types of formats that are useful for people, like, flowcharts, or as a matrix of connections, or having a list of entry points, having a section on terms and definitions like the teacher call to action had, reflection questions for teams. Like, those are the kinds of things we think about and would love your feedback on as you go into breakout rooms. We have a Jamboard where you can provide any thoughts about those. There's a slide for the structure of and elements of the tool that you think would be helpful, and then another frame for the content that would be helpful. In the breakout rooms, you're also totally welcome to just decide to focus in on looking at one of the tools that we just introduced, if that is actually what's most useful for you today. But we just wanted to invite you to give us feedback on the development of this new tool we're working toward. Any questions? That was so much talking at you all, clarifying questions. Okay, then otherwise we're going to open up breakout rooms for you to choose by topic, or if you want to really talk about what district conversation starter tool might look like, there's one for that. Otherwise, they're by the different toolkits. And then there are some open rooms that just say other if you're looking to collaborate with specific people on something. And feel free to hop around. And feel free to hang back if you have questions or need any help.
Or let us know if you need help getting into a room.